On Thursday, 311 Venezuelan migrants arrived via Mexico as part of the Back to the Homeland Plan set forward by the government of President Nicolas Maduro to guarantee the safe return of deported citizens. United States President Donald Trump is set to sign an executive order on Thursday to shut down the Department of Education. Israel has tightened its ground operation against Gaza, restricting movement to Palestinians and further reducing the entry of humanitarian aid. Hello, welcome from the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Caracas, Venezuela. We begin with the news. Stay with us. On Thursday, 311 Venezuelan migrants arrived via Mexico as part of the Back to the Homeland Plan set forward by the government of President Nicolas Maduro to guarantee the safe return of deported citizens. The latest of these flights was announced on Wednesday by the Venezuelan head of state, who urged to increase all diplomatic actions to bring the migrants from the United States. The Venezuelans were received at the Simon Bolivar International Airport in Maiquetía by the Minister of Interior, Justice and Peace of the Latin American nation, Diosdado Cabello. Carrying Venezuelan flags and singing the national anthem, migrants arrived in a Conviasa flight on a plan re-established thanks to meetings between President Maduro and U.S. President Trump's special envoy, Richard Grenell, where the Venezuelan head of state guaranteed the respect and dignity of their return.
We have managed to get this important group of Venezuelans. The actual number is 311. They are arriving here, women, families, men, many children. They are all arriving here today, back to the homeland. The children are back in their homeland. It is a beautiful gesture that we have received from the Mexican government, and we thank them for the attention they have given to the Venezuelans there. And having them here today in our country is a guarantee of peace and tranquility for these families.
During her official visit to Mexico, Laura Sarabia, Foreign Affairs Minister of Colombia, met with the head of the Ministry of the Economy, Marcelo Ebrard. The main point of the agenda has been the strengthening of trade and customs cooperation between both nations. Likewise, the officials agreed to work on projects that promote agriculture and transportation. In order to consolidate this reinforcement of binational cooperation, they also agreed to establish a technical team to simplify customs and phytosanitary procedures. The head of the Colombian diplomacy also proposed, within the framework of this visit, to expand the meetings of foreign ministers within the framework of the Community of Latin American and Caribbean States to strengthen regional markets. U.S. President Donald Trump is set to sign an executive order on Thursday to shut down the Department of Education. As previewed by White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, Trump will order to take all necessary steps to facilitate the closure of the department and return education authority to the states. It is worth recalling that Trump's presidential campaign included a pledge to eliminate the institution, claiming it had been dominated by radicals and Marxists. Precisely per Trump's mandate, the institution began a downsizing program in early March that has affected nearly 50% of its employees. The U.S. Department of Education collects data on educational facilities nationwide and enforces non-discrimination and civil rights laws in federally funded schools. In the United States, wildfires and tornadoes are reported affecting several areas in the central part of the country as a consequence of weather conditions. Authorities reported a new storm system affected 72 million people since last Wednesday, leaving parts of Midwest at risk of fire. The National Weather Service warns about the risk of winds that could exceed 70 kilometers per hour. This is due to a cold front coming from the north that is colliding with warm air from the south, causing low-pressure systems. The Meteorological Agency detailed that the storms produced at least 32 deaths in Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Missouri, in addition to infrastructure and material damages still to be determined. And the number of people affected in Ecuador rises to more than 120,000 by the rains in the Andean region and in the south of the country. The National Secretariat for Risk Management reported that the number of victims during the rainy season has risen to more than 14,000, while 8 of the country's 24 provinces are in a state of emergency, including 6 in the coastal zone as a result of the rainfall. The risk management system forecasts continuity and intensification of the rains in the coming days. The government has also urged citizens to take precautions. And in Ecuador, residents of Esmeraldas protest for the 6th consecutive day to demand answers from the government of Daniel Noboa for the lack of attention to the oil spill in the province. The oil spill, which is reaching critical dimensions, is seriously affecting the surrounding local communities and poses a great environmental impact for an area rich in biodiversity. On Luis Vargas Torres Island, there was a protest by its inhabitants who demanded the presence of authorities because they are also affected by the oil spill that went down the Esmeraldas River. After the incident, Ecuadorian authorities declared an environmental emergency to mitigate the impact of the spill and protect the livelihoods of local residents. We now have our first short break coming up. We'll be right back. Welcome back. In Cuba, the 4th edition of the Patria International Colloquium closed on Wednesday in Havana after 3 days of discussions on the role of technologies in counter-hegemonic media. Our correspondent Belén de los Santos with all the details.
The 4th edition of the Patria International Colloquium came to a close in Havana after fostering 3 days of debates on the impact of technologies in media communications and the role in the construction of counter-hegemonic narratives from the global south.
We're seeing a massive lack of information, disinformation, and it's so important that we can unite here to really work on this fight back, the resistance, and to use social media and media communications in general as a crucial tool to really challenge the imperialist narratives that have prevailed for years and years.
Hosted by the University of Havana, this year's event gathered more than 400 delegates from 47 countries under the slogan "We are peoples weaving networks," a space for communicators and experts to interact and share their collective experiences through workshops, panels, and conferences, tying the bonds of solidarity and international cooperation.
It's the second time I come here, and the reason why I came again is because I think it's one of the most beautiful experiences that you can attend for meeting people mainly from the global south that are working in sometimes in very hard conditions and that are working with a very brave approach for social justice.
This year's event was dedicated to Latin American multi-platform teleSUR on its 20th anniversary, highlighting the media outlet's trajectory focused on giving voice to the peoples of the global south in the fight against misinformation. To this purpose, Cuban President Miguel Díaz-Canel visited teleSUR's exhibition at Patria and congratulated the multimedia on its continuous effort to carry on the legacy of the revolutionary leaders of our America.
teleSUR is the result of their work, Chavez and Fidel Castro. And what better way to honor him 20 years later by this event, which not only includes journalists we normally see from Latin America. I'm impressed how over the last few years, especially with Patricia and other comments at the head of teleSUR, they developed links with important countries.
At the closing event, teleSUR honored President Díaz-Canel, also Cuban revolutionary leader Raúl Castro, and Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro with the teleSUR citizenship for their commitment to the truth of their peoples.
A continuación, tengo el honor de los que creen que otro mundo late en este.
Those who believe that another world beats within this south of ours, your legacy, unbreakable Cuba, indomitable Raúl, hopeful Venezuela is our signal in the air. Truth is non-negotiable. Sovereignty is not for sale. Joy is rebellion. teleSUR, like you three, does not forget, does not get tired, does not fear. The Patria Grande embraces you.
No teme, la patria grande los abraza.
The colloquium closed with a final declaration on the importance of strengthening counter-hegemonic media worldwide, urging media outlets to push for a new technological world order that prioritizes the global well-being above imperialist interests and guarantees universal access to technology. Next year's edition, which will be dedicated to Cuban revolutionary leader Fidel Castro on his 100th anniversary, is called to make the collaborative process set in motion in 2025 a reality. Belén de los Santos, Denise Araví, for teleSUR, Havana, Cuba.
And in other news, hundreds of citizens took to the streets in Haiti to demand protection from threats of gun invasion amid escalating violence in the country. The residents of Canapé Verde, a neighborhood in the city of Port-au-Prince, blocked the accesses to the sector with logs and burned tires to prevent the entry of criminal gangs in the face of the inaction of the police, who went to the place to repress demonstrators instead of protecting the community. As a result, they hold the government responsible for the advance of the gangs, which they claim are in control of at least 85% of the city. On Wednesday night, the Russian Ministry of Defense shot down at least 132 Ukrainian drones inside Russian territory. Precisely, it was unfolded that the most affected provinces were Saratov, Voronezh, and Belgorod, all hit with more than 20 Ukrainian unmanned vehicles. In this regard, the governor of Saratov, a region targeted with 54 drones, denounced the attack as the most aggressive of all time, as it left several people injured and heavily damaged hospitals, schools, and homes. The Ukraine regime's strike comes only days after Russia accepted the ceasefire proposal made by the United States. In this context, the Russian Ministry of Defense informed through a statement that the armed forces intercepted a Ukrainian military train loaded with armament and ammunition in the zone of special operations. The military agency stated that for this tactical action, they used the support of the Russian aviation as well as drones, missiles, and artillery with the aim of destroying the Kiev regime's ammunition and weapons. The report points to military airfields, drone and ammunition depots of the Kiev troops in 153 districts. Also, the Russian forces managed to expel Ukrainian military personnel from a village in the northern region of Zaporizhia. We now have our second short break coming up. Remember to join us on our Facebook to stay up to date on our latest information. We're going to be right back, so don't go away.
El mundo se mueve constantemente y todos los días se generan nuevos sucesos. Se mueve la geopolítica mundial. Nos preguntamos qué hay detrás de cada acontecimiento, cuáles son las consecuencias y cómo nos afectan. Ante estas preguntas, buscaremos poner el punto en la I.
The life is full of moments. Moments of fight. Moments of hope. Moments that transcend. Moments that you can live in. teleSUR documentaries. Sundays, only on teleSUR.
un espacio que permite explorar la conexión entre cuerpo y mente. Y nos brinda nuevas alternativas para llevar una vida saludable. Guía tu cuerpo, una manera diferente de entender nuestra salud. Todos los martes, solo por teleSUR.
Our planet is full of natural paradises that beautify the environment and invite us to protect it from the threats that lurk around it. Unknown wonders that await to be discovered by you. Join us to tour the world from a touristic perspective. Let us move towards a new green destination every Wednesday, only on teleSUR.
Welcome back. Israel warned of tightening up its ground operation against Gaza. As a result, the Palestinian government feared the Zionist Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was preparing a massacre of unimaginable proportions. In addition to having escalated their aggression, the Israeli forces have been banning Gazans to move in any direction on the Salah al-Din road, which connects the north to the south. Likewise, the Israeli regime has deployed their forces in the Netzarim corridor, where the east is split up from the west. Moreover, Netanyahu administration has kept up with the siege on humanitarian aid while besieging the health system and all collection centers. In this regard, Gazan health authorities reported over 700 deaths since the ceasefire deal was broken by Israel. And for 59 consecutive days, the Israeli occupation army continues its aggression against the city and camp of Jenin in the occupied West Bank. Zionist forces issued demolition notices for at least 66 homes in the Al-Hawashin Assam Mosque and Harat al-Samran neighborhoods, under the pretext of widening and paving new roads for their military vehicles to access the camp. They also denounced that the Israeli army keeps blocking the road to the government hospital in Jenin with mounds of earth. And the Israeli police forces repressed demonstrations against the government of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Demonstrators gathered outside the residence of the Israeli Prime Minister in Jerusalem to condemn the recent dismissal of the security chief. The security forces used water cannons to disperse the crowd while arresting those who tried to enter the governmental authorities' residence. The protests began after the resumption of the Israeli genocide against the Gaza Strip. Demonstrators reject the handling of the crisis and the negotiation for the liberation of the captives in Palestinian territories. And during the early hours of Thursday morning, the Israel Defense Forces claimed to have intercepted a Yemeni projectile before it reached its target. They also confirmed that sirens were activated in several areas of the country. This is the second Yemeni missile to be registered since the unilateral breaking of Israel of the ceasefire agreement reached in Qatar. Yemen warned the genocidal occupier that should it resume its crime against the Palestinian people, it would resume its attacks against the occupation. The agency UNHCR reported the death of 6 migrants after the shipwreck of a boat that left the port of Stax, Tunisia, bound for the Italian island of Lampedusa. In addition, the Italian Coast Guard also reported the disappearance of 40 people, while 10 others were rescued and taken to the Italian island. Eyewitnesses reported the boat started to sink a few hours after leaving the Tunisian port. The operations of search for the missing persons are led by the Palermo Coast Guard with the support of the Italian Armed Forces and aircraft of the European Border and Coast Guard Agency. Congolese officials registered new attacks on several localities in northwest and west of Goma City, claiming dozens of civilian lives. Local authorities confirm at least 13 fatal casualties amid the onslaught in the Turungan district in the Nyiragongo territory occupied by M23 armed group. They detailed that so far it had not been possible to remove the victim's body due to the M23 siege. In a similar event, the neighbors of the Nyambangi town of Walikale denounced clashes between pro-government militias and cells of the M23 rebel organization in their struggle to control the mineral-rich area. Therefore, the region has been on alert even though the Congolese government signed a ceasefire deal with Rwanda. At this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website, and also join us on our social media to stay up to date on all the information happening as it happens in the world. For teleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.